Hi there, and welcome to Crumble, where we break the mold and build the bold. My name is David A. King. I am the founder and the CEO of Crumble. This afternoon, I am very pleased to have some of the greatest panelists with me that we're going to be discussing a topic that has come to my attention from various requests, and that it's the child and its future. There's so much that we can talk and really try to understand what that encompasses. And so I didn't find it right for me to be the only person discussing that topic. And so I was able to reach out to some of my colleagues, I would say colleagues and friends that have extensive information on this topic, or that they were willing to come on the platform to be able to share. And so remember, this is Crumble, we break and we build. All right. And so the other thing that I need you to remember is that broken is not branded. So whatever thing that you have gone through, it's not branded. You can always come out of that because that is not your identity. And so without any further ado, please make welcome my first panelist on the stage, Pablo Sage. Come on the stage, Mr. Pablo. And so without any further ado, I'm going to invite my next panelist, Brenda Oduro. It is again my pleasure to welcome my third panelist, Miss Rachel. Welcome on stage, Miss Rachel. And my last panelist, please make welcome Miss Lydia. And here we have our four panelists. I'll give them an opportunity to introduce themselves so you can get to know them better. Miss Brenda, please go ahead.
My name is Brenda Oduro. I'm a RECE. I'm a mother and I'm a childhood advocate.
My name is Pablo Hipatella. I'm a child and youth worker. I'm an undergrad in psychology, and I'm also a former Kingsmaker, which is a program that is controlled by the host over here, David. And basically the program was a program for young youths and how to shape ourselves so we can be better for our future and to find a purpose in our lives.
My name is Lydia, and I'm an international education consultant, and I'm passionate about children.
My name is Rachel, and I'm a social worker in Indigenous Studies.
Thank you so much. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And so to kick in with our conversation this afternoon, we'll be talking about the child and its future. And now, before I start bombarding this panelist with questions, I would like to just let you know that when we speak about a child and its future, we are not only focusing on the child as we look at, but remember, each one of us has an inner child in us. And so how we interact with our children also speaks volume on who we are, or speaks volume on our own inner child. And so to ask the first question, I want to ask, how can you define, or what comes to mind when we ask you what is parenting?
When it comes to parenting, in my opinion, I don't think there's a real definition for what is parenting, and I don't think there's really a full way you can define parenting. I think for everybody it's more so self-subjective, and even from an earlier conversation that I had with my uncle, he explained to me that only of recent that word parenting was really put into the English dictionary. Before then, parenting as we know it is more so parental care. So in the way how I would explain it for parenting, in the simple way, you could just say like raising a child, but then you could also be saying that development, being there and supporting for the development of the child's emotional being and physical being. That's the way how I would define parenting.
Okay.
I would say parenting is guiding young children, raising them, just like Pablo said, being there for their emotional, social development, every aspect of the child. So basically, you are there to guide them, assist them to grow into who they were created to be. That's my take on parenting.
I think parenting is, like they said, basically how you guide and bring up a child. Not necessarily you having bore the child, but if you have any child in your care, basically how you bring them up based on your beliefs or whatever, it's parenting.
Well, as my colleagues said already. I think they said it all. The only thing I'll add to it is just to mold, not even mold, help your child on their journey to become exactly what Brenda said, their full potential. Um, Parenting means a lot to different people. We all know the basis of parenting, but when we go individually and what parenting means to us, um, me personally, all I can do is say I guide my children. I guide them and I help them. I don't force them. I watch them and I help them to become what they want to be.
So would you say that since it's individualized for each person, would you say that each person's parenting style comes from how they were brought up?
I can definitely agree to that one. I won't lie, because the way that my parents parented me is not the same way that I'll parent my children.
Right,
And that stems from how they were parented.
right.
But as I can say, as time has changed and with society, we evolve and we learn more and we
Mhm.
adapt more. And we can see the challenges our parents faced while parenting us. So we hope to overcome those challenges and kind of correct some of the missteps during that time and help our children. Of course, we're going to mess up during the, along the way, but we're just praying, and hoping that God will guide us, because He did give us this precious gift
Mhm.
to help them walk towards their best potential, hopefully in the kingdom of God, walk towards that kingdom. So I just pray that God strengthens us.
Right.
I agree with Rachel on the fact that how you were brought up yourself does affect the way you parented. Most of us on the panel, our parents are not from North America. They migrated here from different parts of the world. So based on how they were raised and based on the understanding that they had, they, as much as they wanted to assimilate into the North American culture, their traditions and customs played a big role in how they raised us. And when you are raised in, I want to say, an immigrant family home, a lot of the culture is what determines how those parents are raising you. And sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to navigate because you are now in a whole different culture. And as the child growing up with those parents, you're assimilating into a new culture, but also your parents are bringing you up in their culture. So there can be a lot of differences in that. And as we grow here in this North American country, that shapes how we are now raising our children. The way I raise my children is definitely not the way my parents raised me. And it's not to say there was anything wrong in the way my parents raised me. They raised me best how they knew. And as I became a mother, I have gained a lot of understanding, empathy for my own parents. And I often even say to myself, there might come a time in my own life as a mother where my two daughters may possibly say, Mom, you did certain things that shaped me differently. And my response to them will be, I did the best that I know how. So with that being said, we are all just striving to guide our children as best as we possibly can. I learned that children are a heritage and a gift from God. So that helped me a lot to also know that who they are, God will see them through. And my sole responsibility is just to be there to help them as much as possible.
I hear what both Miss Rachel and Miss Brenda are saying on that question. Now, I want to try and bring in an argument, and that's the argument that has been on the internet. And there was a debate recently in England. I think it was under the forum was intelligent to the power of two, so they call it IQ2. And the argument was some were for and some were against the importance of parenting. Some argue that parenting is not so important. It wouldn't change the outcome of the child because they were more focused on your DNA and your genetics will definitely predetermine how a child is going to become. And then the others were for that regardless of the DNA and the genetics formations and cultural or environmental, parenting still plays a pivotal role in determining the future or how the child would the outcome. So I'm not trying to start that debate here, but like, what would be your take on that? If you were to be on that debate, would you be for or against that? Does parenting really matters, or it doesn't matter as much?
To answer that question, I think that's a really good question. I think if you're just looking on the aspect where you're defining parenting and just looking at it as like it has to be from your mom or father, then in a sense, then you might get confused there. That's why I said, like, when it comes to parenting, you can't really define it like that. Parenting can be from your uncle, can be from somebody that's your elder, it can be from anybody, right? So for somebody to say, oh, parenting does not matter, we are shaped by the people, who raise us, right? So for instance, if I didn't have my parents and I just had my uncle and he's raising me, he's doing his parental care, he's doing his parental job, to raise me as a person that who I am. If there's a friend out there that they have their own parent, it's not my blood, but they're going to be doing their parental job, that they know what to do to raise me as a person who to be, right? Which also goes back to what Brenda and Auntie Rachel was saying, that when it comes to parenting, it's their first time as well, right? So it's like, I tell youth all the time, you shouldn't really be too hard on your parents because it's their first time. Everybody's adapting, everybody's learning. So parenting is very important because it shapes us on how we're going to be in the future, and then we're going to do the same job for our future kids or other youth in the community.
We're definitely gonna be for that panel because we are not islands, right? And you can't, if you are a toddler, you can't take care of yourself. You definitely need someone to guide you, to help you grow, nourish you, be it emotionally or physically through feeding and all of that.
Mhm.
And imagine you're a toddler, how are you going to fend for yourself? If we look at it in that spectacle, then we'll realize that you need somebody. Now, this somebody may not, like Pablo said, may not be the parent who bore you, but then it can be your uncle, it can be your auntie, whatever. So you definitely need someone to bring you up in all these aspects of your life to nurture you to grow.
Right. Ms. Roach, you want to give us your input on this
No
as a
problem.
social worker in this platform?
Thank you. As it's like what Pablo said.
You guys should watch the
And-
debate though. It's just an hour. It's very interesting debate.
I would love to.
I will send you the
When I
link.
have the
It's
time.
it's an interesting debate. Like, I was blown. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Or you can even put the link in the chat. So,
I should share the link. Yeah. You'd love it.
it's like what Pablo said. A lot of time when people hear parenting, they automatically assume mom and dad.
Right.
And even if somebody doesn't have a mom or dad, there's other ways that they're being parented.
Mhm.
So it goes back to the definition of what parenting is in the dictionary, right? And that's guidance or to help lead a way in that sense. And everybody plays a part in that. And it even goes back to I'm going to put myself as a child of God. God
Mhm.
parents me every day.
Right.
He places things, objects, people in my way to help me grow, to help shape me, to help add to what I know, to help teach me. Even teachers, to be honest, are parenting one way or another. They're not your parent, but they are shaping the way you think, the way you
Right.
move, and how you talk to people.
Right.
So I'm definitely for parenting.
For
I
parenting.
don't see how you can go around that term of being parent.
Right. Go against, but it's okay next time.
I just wanted to add one more thing regarding that question. Let's say the successful people that we see, celebrities, and how some of them be like, oh, I came from nothing, I had to get it from the gutters, I had to do it by myself.
Mhm.
Even though they do say that, there was a mentor. Before they got to that point, there's always a mentor. There's always somebody that gets you to that next point.
Right.
And how I look at parenting is the same thing as any mentor. Your parents are mentoring you.
Right.
If it's anybody that's trying to raise you to be this person, they're mentoring you, they're guiding you. So even that person that you might have met on the side of the road, somebody that gave you that next opportunity, they did their parenting job by mentoring you and guiding you to be who you are today. So
Right.
for you to say like, oh, parenting, I'm not for it, it's like you're just canceling out everything. Then everybody in the world, we just do everything by ourselves. No one gave us that influence.
No. You wanna add something?
and
You
I
can
just
look for
wanted
them
to
after
touch.
too.
I just wanted to touch on what Pablo said,
Right.
and that's why it is very important on what we introduce to our environment,
Uh-huh.
especially with our children. What we introduce, who we introduce to our children,
Right.
how much influence that person has on our children. So for me, I'm very cautious on who I let into my home and my
Mhm.
environment, and not just for me, because I'm still being parented, even
Right.
by my friends.
Correct.
You get what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So I'm very cautious in who I let into my home, and not when I say home, I don't mean my house. I mean my children,
Right.
my marriage.
Mhm.
I'm very, very cautious on who. So when that certain trust is broken for me, I take it hard because I know they were also parenting my children.
Right.
So
Well, I think Miss Brenda, Pablo, and Miss Rachel, you touched on something. I think Miss Lee also said it, and you both used key points or a word that is functional. And I think I want to um, ask a question on that. Since you spoke about mentors, that parents are like mentors, you spoke about we being immigrant, that we migrated from different countries to here. And so if we consider that parents are mentors, if we consider us being immigrant, or maybe even other people who are not immigrant, since you are guiding and you are like that oversight to your children, how much influence or should parent decide a career path for their kids? Because that has been a very huge debate, because where we come from, there's like those top 5 things.
Yeah.
And well, it makes sense if you think of it, but like how much of an influence should a parent be when a kid is or when a child is trying to decide on their career path?
So for me, this question, how I'm going to answer it is personal. I'm not answering from a social worker standpoint. I'm
Right.
answering it from a Rachel,
Okay.
right? Based on past experiences,
Personal experience.
personal experience.
Okay.
One thing I can say is growing up, I had many talents, many hats.
Mhm.
But out of those many talents and hats, my parents chose where they wanted me to go and forced me down that path
Mm.
to go to do what they wanted to do. And I did do that.
Right.
I went along with the journey, but halfway I couldn't do it because that's not where my heart was. So I stopped. And when I stopped, I now started the path I wanted to be.
Right.
You understand? And every time I always look back and I said, if I was able to start the path that I'm on now at the time I wanted to
You'd have
be,
been far.
I would have been far.
Correct.
Right? So how I stand when it comes to children and where they want, I honestly let my children decide. I help them. Maybe it, like for instance, my son, when he finished school, he didn't have a direction
Mhm.
as to what he wanted to do, but I did see he had a talent for marketing.
Mhm.
He had a talent for branding.
Mm.
That was something he liked. So we went to different seminars
Mhm.
where he was able to get a mentor,
Right.
and that mentor was able to draw certain questions out of him, and the answers that he got from him helped him to navigate towards digital marketing. Digital marketing, yes. And he went to look into it and see, this is what I want.
That he wanted. Right.
So he's like, aiming towards that. Will I tell him no, digital marketing? No, because he can be successful in that.
Correct.
Just because person B wasn't successful in digital marketing doesn't mean he's not going to be, because
Right.
it's something he loves. And if he loves that, he's already successful.
Correct.
So.
Miss Lydia, since
Yes.
as an so for Miss Lydia here, she has to give us like the real answer, both personal and not personal, because she's an educational consultant.
Yes.
And she's helped a lot of people to. Miss Lydia, please.
Yeah. So I'm going to
educate
take
us.
this in 2 angles. From my parents' side and how they parented us or guided us in our career path.
Right.
So I know very well when I was growing up, I just wanted to be a doctor, right? Maybe because
Dr.
of
Lydia.
yeah. I'm being honest. Maybe
Sorry,
because
medical
I had
doctor
a
or
lot
like what
of
kind of
yeah,
doctor?
medical doctor.
Medical
I actually
doctor.
did science in school.
MD.
Yes. So along the line, my grades weren't so good. So my eldest brother,
Mhm.
he sort of like guided me. It's like, you're very good in communicating, those
Right.
kind of things. I speak in church, I read in church, I do all that. So I was like, have you thought of PR and communications, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
So he helped me get into journalism school. And that's why I took the whole media, the passion for media, journalism, and PR and all of that.
Mhm.
I can talk really nice for brands.
Hey,
So
she's marketing. Please contact me.
so
I'm
that
the
sort
manager.
of like spearheaded me into this whole communications
Uh-huh.
and all of that. And it's very broad. Sometimes we think that communication is just talking about, being a communications director, all that, but a lot goes into it, right? And
Mhm.
if you tend to understand the career very well, I would say that my eldest brother really helped me
Mhm.
because yes, my passion for doctor didn't happen, but then I'm successful in whichever career. And one thing my dad always said is, it doesn't matter what you do, even if you're polishing a shoe, do it so well, like put your heart in it, and that's how you derive your purpose,
As
right?
long as it's legal,
As
though.
long, of course, as long as it brings you joy, as long as you're passionate about
Right.
it, and
You have
all
to be
of that.
specific because if you say just do anything, as long as it
No,
could be
I mean,
legal.
we don't respect people who make shoes, but
Of
now
course,
it's
I hear
a
that.
big business, right?
Right.
Yeah, if you make shoes and you do it so well, people buy your shoes because
Correct.
yeah, even if you're mowing grass because that's what you love to do.
Correct.
You do it great and you're good at it.
Oh,
Now, on the flip side, as an education consultant, I normally consult for people, and most people really need direction, right?
Mhm.
Especially because there are so many facets to it, like immigration policies, what you're doing. Everybody just wants to do maybe healthcare or
Right.
PSW or something,
It's
but
popular.
they have to really understand. I ask you want to do PSW, can you work for 12 hours continuous the whole week?
Mhm.
Is this something you're passionate about?
Right.
And they're like, I just want to do it because I want to come in. I'm like, no. So you have to go and think about it. If it's not something you're passionate about, you are not passionate about taking care of somebody, so you can't do it.
Right.
So find something. I engage them. What do you do professionally? What comes to you naturally? And some people are in jobs that they are just doing for the money and not because they love it.
Correct.
So fine, Canada gives you the opportunity to change your career, but know that you're going to start from the scratch.
Correct.
And that's something you want to be focused on doing
Mhm.
and not compare yourself to other people.
Right.
So you guide them. This is something you want to do. Know that if you're starting from the scratch, you're starting from entry level,
Mhm.
and you're going to build it up. So forget about all the experiences you have from the past, but know that there's something you're doing because you love it and you want to be, purposeful and you want to be committed to it. So that's a way to guide people who have already had like 20 years of a career or 10 years of a career and they're going to start all over again.
Mhm.
You have to understand what the ultimate goal is. And that's where you sometimes guide people to in terms of career paths.
Okay.
I hope this answers it.
Education consultant.
Regarding that question, I'm gonna fall back to what Rachel said about talents. I feel like with parents, it shouldn't be a thing where you should force upon what you think is right. Like in like African cultures per se, some African parents are like, oh, you should be a doctor, you should be a lawyer, you should be this. Going based off of more what the money's gonna bring in, but now what's gonna bring happiness for your child. I feel like you have to find that balance in between where it's like, okay, this is your child you're raising as well. You also have to know what type of talents does this child have. You know, if my child is good at sports, if my child's good at communications, if my child is smart, if my child's good at computers. You have to pick those things up from young. And yes, they're gonna have their own interests, but then at the same time, you just sprinkle some type of wisdom into them and be like, oh, you're good at this as well. Why don't you try this? Let them try many things, you know, because you also have to explain to your kids that time waits for nobody, right? You're going to get older. You might change your mind. But when you do change your mind, like we said, you're going to start from scratch, right? So you got to work for it. So at the same time, you have to let them know it's like, okay, even if you're in grade 12, you don't know what you're going to do yet. Start like brainstorming. Start thinking, okay, what talents do I have? What can I do, right? Because per se, your parents aren't there. Who are you going to go to for guidance? Who are you going to be talking to? So at the same time, I don't think as parents we should be forcing, but I feel like we should be more so guiding them, you know, and talking to them, tell them, okay, you want to do this? All right. Why do you want to do this? Where can you go with this? Okay, that's a cool idea. I'm just going to give you another alternative, you know, in case you change your mind. So I feel like as parents, you guys shouldn't be forcing your kids. And that's something I wouldn't do either. I wouldn't force my kids, but more so guide them and also look at the talents that they have as well.
So I think both of you, the three of you are staying on guidance, right? But then I'm here as an advocate. I got no sides. So you are influencing your child to be able to do what you
I think that's a wrong choice.
influence, guide, guide. All right, you are guiding your child or your children to go to a certain path that they believe. And I think you touched on happiness, right? So whether they are happy doing what they are doing, but we understand that happiness doesn't pay the bills. And so since happiness doesn't pay the bills, and I'm saying this from a, a story that I was involved in, like I knew there was a child who wanted to go and do a career that it wasn't really, let's say, money driven per se, but they were happy to do it, right? And so their parent tried to influence them again, guide them, social worker, okay? The influence and guidance. They are correcting my terminology. It's good. I mean, these are people in the field. Right. So they were telling them that what they're doing, it's not something that it's going to be worth it down the road. But still, the child wanted to do what they wanted to do. They eventually went, they did their career. It was, I think, it was 2.5 years. After that, zero balance. There was nothing that came. Nothing came. There was no cash. There was no job. Because we have to look at it in a way that every country have like jobs and careers that do pay, right? And so we have to. I'm here advocating on a different stand that how do you then play the role as a parent, knowingly that you know where they are headed, it will not be worthwhile, both financially and just as a career per se.
That's a bit so. And I appreciate you being an advocate.
I am advocating.
Because there's always somebody on that other side.
Right.
But in the story that you were saying, that you just mentioned, where the child was doing something that the parents not necessarily saw the vision that the child may have been seeing it.
Right.
So instead of guiding the child, they were influenced the child to go to another way, versus as if they guide, that child would have gotten assistance. It's gone back to what Lydia said. Someone could be mowing the lawn. Mowing the lawn is what? It's if on any other circumstance you see mowing the lawn as like a $5 job.
Right.
But if with the right guidance, with the right tools, that person can turn mowing the lawn into a multi-million
Let me challenge you.
business.
Let me
logistic.
let me challenge
Just
you.
like hairdressing, at a point when I was younger,
Right.
hairdressing was looked down upon.
Yes, now.
And there's a lot of us that know how to do hair. But because hairdressing was looked down upon, a lot of our parents made sure that hairdressing was something we do not explore
Right.
further. But now,
It makes money.
looking at it,
But let me challenge you. Let me challenge you and the panel and those that are watching. And I do apologize for this question. I am trying to advocate because at the same time, we have to be practical and real. Now, we have so many career choices. My question now, no, sorry, let me correct before you guys tag me. I am advocating outside the box. Your child wants to pursue, I'm sorry, for those that are underage, your child wants to pursue a career in adult filming. It's a practical career that pays. It has a lot of money. It's what they want to do. It makes them happy. You are the parent. How do you go? Because we are talking about mowing the grass, hairdressing. These are normal stuff. We can all see. Oh, we are able to discuss those. Getting practical into the actual thing. They want to pursue a career in adult film, whether male or female. How do you go about it as a parent in that area?
So for me, I would definitely have a conversation with my child. I would want to know why they want to go down that path.
It makes them happy.
What is, see, I think when you heard happiness,
Mhm.
I think
Maybe
when a
misunderstood. Mhm.
different
Because I'm trying to
direction
advocate for those that are also watching, because I want them to understand. So
look, who's to say that's a wrong career path for somebody?
no, I'm not saying it's a wrong career path. I'm saying as a parent, how do you go about it? Because we don't speak about
But
those.
some parents are pretty happy with their children pursuing that kind of industry.
Right, but then to those that are not, like, they don't look at it as a
Maybe depending on their values.
right. So how do you
Let
go about that,
Brenda-
Miss Brenda,
Brenda-
please?
So for me, I would definitely have a conversation with my child.
Mhm.
I would explain to them some of the things that could potentially happen to them should they pursue that career.
Mhm.
The implication it may have on them physically,
Right.
the implications that it will have on them mentally, and also socially. Because sometimes something might look really good.
Correct.
It doesn't always mean that it's going to be good for you.
Mhm.
Because in every choice that you make, there is always a consequence later.
Right.
So perhaps for them, it seems like it's the right path to go down on. But in the longevity,
Mhm.
because we don't only live for today, right? We are
Right.
always looking ahead and looking into the future. So if you choose to want to be in the adult entertainment field,
Mhm.
there are implications that comes with that along the way. The way that you're going to be looked at. We might say we don't care, but it still has an effect on you
Right.
and the way people will perceive you as well. So for me, I will really have a conversation with my child. And this is a moment where I will lead to influencing you to go elsewhere.
Yeah, because I asked that question, Miss Brenda and also Miss Rachel. I'm asking these questions because, and Miss Leah just touched on values,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm here trying to think for other people there, right? That, as you said, it has an effect not just on you but also on your family.
Yeah.
So then, as a parent, that kind of thing, like, it does scratch you. It does, like, it's like it hits your head. You're like, if you're a Christian, like, blood of Jesus right there, like, it can, like, what kind of village people are after you?
So if you're telling me if your child does enter into that field, what would be your reaction? You're no longer talking to your child?
No, me personally. Oh, no. There are ways to explore, as Miss Brenda said, right? Because at first is you first have me. See, I'm not supposed to be answering this question, but like, okay, let me just give you a bit. For me, first, I would want to know what happened, what got you to that interest.
Yeah.
There have to be a cause to you wanting to be anything in this world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody must have brought that idea to you, or
Yeah.
you yourself.
Yeah.
I need to understand. I need you to explain to me.
Yeah.
We sit, coffee or whatever, make me understand how you came to that desire.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm going to challenge you to be able to put it on paper that you understand, that you make me understand, that you make my uncles and aunties understand. So we all understand, really, okay, you've got a game plan. And as a parent or as a guardian, I'm going to tell you what I think it's right. As Miss Brenda said, all the implications and XYZ. And remember that you are taking a decision. Be sure
Mhm.
to be ready to handle the consequences. I love you, but, like, remember, loving you does not negate you or me to correct you.
Mhm.
It doesn't come without consequences. Even God loves us, but there are consequences that God brings, right? I just
I think I'm gonna touch up every what all of you guys said,
Mhm.
actually, because you guys all had good points. To start off, which I've seen kids and parents as well, one thing we have to understand is no matter how much you want to influence our kids, no matter how much guidance we can give them, at the end of the day, some kids are gonna be so focused on something, even if you tell them, you give them right in their face, 1+1 is 2. If their head says 3, they're going with 3, right? So if the kid says, no, this is what I'm doing, sometimes we just have to put our hands up, and with faith in God, that's how it goes, even if it's the worst of the worst. Because people, as much as we hate it and you don't want people to go that route, they learn through consequences, right? And to also touch back on what you said, if per se my child comes to me and tells me that I want to do this.
Wait, do what?
Me myself, it
Pablo
makes me-
doesn't want to repeat it.
Yeah.
Be wearing
Me
gloves.
myself, I can't even give you guys the full insight. But of course, since I studied the field of psychology, me myself, I have the wisdom from God. We'll start off with obviously, like David said, okay, how did we get here? All these small questions, and how I'm a very logical person. So we're gonna go, okay, this is what you want to do. It brings you happiness, okay. Talk about how I'm gonna tell you, okay, if it brings you happiness, do you know what's gonna happen when you get into this field? Do you know what happens to the people that are in this field?
Right.
Right? Because people are in that field, in the moment they feel like they're happy. If you go read reports that you see, social media, you hear everything. People that are in the industry, they're not happy. The things they make them do, especially women,
Yeah.
the things they make them do. At times you don't even know what's going to happen. The things that are just making nasty things, which is why if you look into it, suicides, and it's not mainly the males, it's the females,
Yeah.
right? And it's even the ones that you got if it's those people that watch pornography and whatnot, you'll be hearing, oh yeah, this person I watched, this famous person, she died, but I thought she was making so much money.
Yeah.
Money doesn't buy happiness. People, they would degrade you and all that. So those are the things I'll explain to my child. Be like, you want to do this, but are you sure you know what you're getting yourself into,
Mhm.
right? Or you're just following social media with OnlyFans. You see people saying, "Oh, I'm in OnlyFans. I'm making this much money." $14 per month. That's like Netflix. You're degrading yourself. Like, well, come on. That like you're not them. You don't know how people got there. You don't know their backstory. Even people that are making so much money, they're still not happy. They're still committing suicide.
Right.
So it's also asking, okay, how did you come about this? Why do you want to do this?
Yeah.
So just having those type of conversations.
That's
And then-
good.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, if the child goes that route, yes, you love your child, you talk to them about these things, but hopefully through consequences they'll learn, and whatever route you as a parent is gonna take, if it's from a distance, yes, love them, but keep them as a distance, but still guide them, and that's the route you take. I don't think there's really a wrong way to go about things.
Okay.
Let's do a disclaimer, a mini disclaimer.
Disclaimer.
OnlyFans, before we get attacked, OnlyFans is not just provocative. There's some OnlyFans
there's some good things. Yeah,
that are pretty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
yeah,
decent?
like
Yeah, some people can do an OnlyFans for cooking.
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, actually,
yeah, you can do that.
For cooking, like they basically.
but like,
try
is
to
there like
monetize their page? So
Right.
that if
Yeah.
you want to see insight on how they cook something, you have to subscribe.
Even fighters as well, they have
Yeah.
OnlyFans where they
So
can
it's
show
not
stuff.
just. It's not just.
so? Why is
Yeah,
there
indecent exposure.
so why is there like a negative
Negative,
connotation
yeah.
around
Because
it?
how it started and how it got into how it was brought to your attention.
Or into mainstream?
How it was brought to
Yeah.
your attention.
Oh,
It wasn't
okay.
brought to your attention through somebody cooking or somebody.
But was
showing
that the
their feet.
initial purpose of Holyfan? That was to be because
To be
I've
honest,
heard
I don't
I've
want
heard
to-
about it, but like I've
Yeah.
never really like, because it came to me as with a negative connotation. I was like, thank you, goodbye. I don't
Of
know,
course.
right?
Yeah.
So now this is new
Yeah.
that I'm hearing,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and I think it's new for most
Of
people
course.
that there is more than just,
Mhm.
right? Because I'm like, if I see my friend or if I see we done, right? But now if there's also ways to make money without compromising your
Mhm.
integrity, then
Yeah,
please
Of course
enlighten
it
me.
does.
No, there is.
Enlighten
But
me
you
before
asked
you
me like
attend them.
if that was the basis of it. I
Yeah.
don't know. I never went further. I just know what is out there now on OnlyFans is not just
We're joining
indecent-
Holyfan to educate
indecent-
them
and
on
then
how
the
to.
holy and then the title of OnlyFans doesn't
Yeah.
help it.
I think it's the
Is the title
Ah.
OnlyFans, right? But the whole meaning behind it was that OnlyFans will subscribe to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's sort of like
The way they
move
was-
from just
Mhm.
provocative to just maybe. So if you're a content creator, right? Let's say on
you can
YouTube,
also.
you can also only have a subscriber base for your content, meaning they only
Okay.
get the content you post, or they get a live streaming or something. That's also OnlyFans. Just that
Oh.
we've sort of like put it in that provocative way, but most content creators or publishers or whatever have
also
like
do.
a subscriber base for
Ah.
their
So it's their
Work.
way of generating income.
monetizing their talent
Oh,
and
okay,
skills.
that's good. Well, people, Holyfan, we are joining. I'll send you my handle. Yeah, we have,
Even gamers have.
we have to.
OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Gamers have OnlyFans too.
right. So if there's a way to make money on Holyfan without compromising, tomorrow we are joining.
Yes.
But anyways, like,
It's the title, but the OnlyFans will subscribe. to
right,
it.
that's good. All right, so here's a question. So Pablo here, he's playing I think he's playing a role to bring the balance because he's not a parent.
I'm also not a parent.
So is Lydia. But I'm talking on age difference, right? So he more represent like the youth sector, right? And so he would have like the Gen Z blood, you know, although he's advanced because of course he has he was influenced at a very early age and guidance. So that, but like, I want us to be able to be really honest with ourselves, right? Because
Yeah.
it comes down to that. I feel like most of the times we try to, like, sugarcoat and go around, and that's why I asked that question about your child wanting to be an adult film, because these are things that are happening in our society, right?
Yeah.
And we don't get a chance to really discuss that. Now, I want to, since we are still there and we are speaking about culture and XYZ, most of us have traveled from maybe Africa into the Western world, right? And there are a lot of things that are not the same, that are different. And so one of the things that is absolutely different, I think, I mean, growing up, I didn't see it as much. If it was there, I don't know. Is there like an appropriate time or age that your child should start dating?
I see.
And I asked this, and so as you think of that question and answer, you also have to go further and also discuss like how far would you permit that interaction as far as your home is concerned.
Mhm.
So are you answering this from a mother's perspective, a social worker,
I'm
or,
blending.
or from
I'm
a daughter
blending.
perspective?
I'm blending.
Okay, blend it.
I'm blending. I'm blending at this point. To be honest, to say if there's an appropriate age for dating is I want to say it's a reach. It depends.
Okay.
I think the question should be more like, when is the appropriate time to have that discussion
Mhm.
with your child? And with society how it is now, I honestly think the earlier the better to have that conversation with your child.
Right.
And also you can gauge it based on your child. Like for instance, I'm not gonna talk to my 5-year-old about it because she's just gonna look at me like,
What are you talking about?
right? But does she come home and tell me this guy likes me? Of course. Will I have a certain conversation based on what her knowledge is now?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
So that paves the way and opened the door for me to have little conversations with her that will build it to the bigger conversation that I hope to have with her when she grows older.
Okay. So the sooner the
The
better.
sooner, especially in today's society.
Because now, like, we see kids,
if
like,
you don't guide them,
somebody else is going to guide them.
Exactly.
110%.
Miss Lydia, education
Yes.
consultant, give us the educational side of this question.
So I mean, I'm just gonna base this off as how my parents like had these conversations, right?
Right.
So I come from a very like closely knit family where my mom was very, very vocal about these things, right?
Mhm.
So she may not, and like I think Brenda was speaking about the fact that the way they were parented was different from how we were parented, and obviously how they even parent my nieces,
Mhm.
totally different. Sometimes I'm jealous about how they parent my nieces, though. But yeah, it may not be off of the bigger conversation of don't be in a relationship, don't date this person, and all of that, but it's basically from when you're growing up. And especially when you're getting to adolescent stages, they're having those little conversations with you.
Right.
And my parents didn't have that sort of they didn't know how to go about it.
Right.
Especially because I was the only girl. I can only base it off as that. But my brothers probably had like a different explanation about it. But for me, it was more of don't be in a relationship. Don't let a boy touch you.
You get pregnant. You get if they look
Don't
at
let
you,
a boy
you have
touch you.
twins.
You get pregnant. Don't let but you know, as and when I grew, even those things sort of like put fear in me, right?
Right.
It put fear in me. So I really never liked to even have anything to do with guys or girls, whatever. But then along the line, they find better ways of trying to educate you or have conversations about it.
Mhm.
My mom in recent times is like, we never really used to talk like this before. And I was like, yes, because we didn't used to understand each other. Right. Because she has also understood that we needed to have had certain conversations earlier on.
Right.
But it was more of how they were parented and how, they are trickling it down on this generation. That's me. So as we grew, we are now able to comfortably have certain conversations.
Right.
And she acknowledges that she didn't do right by having those education because she didn't know how to go about it. But now me trying to understand it that it's not your fault, is probably you didn't know how to go about it. And now we're having those conversations at this level. She really does appreciate it that I'm opening up to her. And I'm sure she would have loved it to be much earlier and not to be like fighting me with those terms because that's what they knew. But I feel like at this point, if you want to have a conversation with your child, the earlier the better.
Right.
I also agree with what my peers were saying. I feel like it is better to have that conversation earlier on, but you don't want to just bring up, like, for example, if you're, like Rachel said, if your child comes up to you, that's when you can have that conversation. But I feel like you shouldn't more so take the route that some of our parents, like in African culture, take the route where it's like with some of them, they just look at it more, it's like straight to marriage, you know? No, you shouldn't be talking to nobody. You should just be getting married to them, because they only be believing in dating, right? So obviously we have the thought of dating, getting to know somebody with them is just more so, no, you shouldn't talk to nobody, straight to marriage. Or, oh, you shouldn't be letting guys touch you. You shouldn't be talking to guys. But not every child is going to react the same way. Some children, yes, might have that fear and will stray away from it. But other kids will have that thought of, but why?
Yeah.
Right? You're telling me this, but why? So I feel like when you're having this conversation, growing up, once that conversation happens, you have to explain to them, let's say for the girl's perspective, you have to tell them you have to value yourself. If you're gonna find a guy out there that wants you, right? Yes, you're young. We're gonna go basis, middle school, high school. You're in middle school. You're in middle school right now. You have to be real with them. Tell them, okay, yes, you like this guy, whatnot, but you're young as well. Sure, you guys are gonna have your things. At the end of the day, your kids are gonna go outside. You don't know what's going on, but you have to implement that mindset into them that if you're going to be with somebody, this person has to value you. The person that's going to value is going to want to have a friendship first, right? The person is going to be trying to be like, oh, let me touch you here, let me touch you here, let me kiss you. No, that's not how it goes. There's steps into it, you know? And while you're giving them this advice, you still have to have that faith that if it's through religion or whatever you believe in, that God is going to guide them as well. And that God is going to parent them. Because when they go outside, it's a whole different world, right? They'll make their own decisions. So then when it comes back to the question, when do you think it might be appropriate for them to start dating? Me personally, I would say around like grade 12, because that's like your future or whatnot. You're getting to university. I'll still advise and tell them, okay, if you found somebody, yes, focus on your books, but at the same time, remember all the teachings I gave you and how you're going to go about it. You know, if this person is somebody that you feel like really cherishes you and values you, you know, and you're not being devalued, right? And just everything you explain to the child about sex and all this, if that person follows that, then by all means, you know, we can go forward with that. But it's still going to be rules and implications growing up. Like if it's my child coming, trying to bring somebody to the house, like there's always going to be a boundary, which is different for every type of parent. But that's just how I would go about it with my child.
Right.
And just because of what Pablo said, to be honest, we've moved into a generation, and I like what you said, we've moved into a time where it's now, but why? We've moved into a time where it's a but why time. During my time,
Try it.
It's
a disrespect.
it was a silent. It was keep your mouth closed.
Yeah, if you
You don't
said-
ask questions. You keep your mouth closed, and I think that's where my trauma comes from too. So I like this new step, that direction that we're going to. But why? Right? We moved into that time, so I like that. But why?
Right. Yeah.
So have a time for them to be able to understand
Yeah.
these are the
It built a healthy
relationship as well.
Yeah, because if
And
you explain that
conversation.
why to a 5-year-old, like she said, like the 5-year-old's gonna look at you like, if you tell me the why, like they're gonna forget the next day,
Right.
right? And that's the same thing. The parents that will be like, oh, like they might take the why as disrespect. It's like you taking that disrespect, you don't know how that kid's gonna react. Most kids, like in my generation and youth, like they despise their parents because the parents are just like, it's my way or no way. You can't talk to me at all. Right? So parents, you have to have times, yes, even so, if you believe like, okay, your kids have to listen to you, you have to also have moments where when your kid does come to you and is asking these questions, you shouldn't shut them out and be like, oh, you can't talk to me, don't ask me questions. No, that's not the way to go, because your kid's gonna look like, okay, I can't talk to you about nothing. So when they are going through something, they have no outlet. And
Right.
that's when they're gonna go to their friends and ask them, and their friends might give them the wrong advice, and then you're gonna ask, oh, well, I talked to them about this, but they're not listening. You have to question yourself and be like, okay, how did it get to this point?
Brenda.
So for me, I have a very open relationship with my children because when I was growing up, I really couldn't tell my mom anything. I didn't even want to. So as I became a mother, I took a very different approach. And like Rachel said, and Pablo touched on it, Lydia as well, these conversations are always uncomfortable. There is age appropriate times where you can do this. But for me, I do believe in the sooner you talk about it,
The
the
better.
better. You can explain things to the child at different stages of their life. A 5-year-old coming home and telling you that a boy likes them, there's a way you can explain that to them. A middle schooler coming home and telling you a boy likes them, there's a way that you can explain to them as well.
Right.
But I find that if you, the parent, don't take that initiative to have that open dialogue with your children, society and social media would dictate what is normal. Because again, our children are exposed to a lot, right? So for me, with my daughters, I will often explain to them, like, okay, you're watching a show. The show is depicting a boy liking a girl. And I always have to remind them, like, you know, this girl playing a teenager is actually not a teenager. They are somebody much older. So it's also about the maturity level of the child.
Right.
So for me, I have a 16-year-old daughter, and she's very mature in a lot of areas, but not, I wouldn't say she was mature in the area of I want to date. So we will have discussions about certain things, and I like to be very open. So I will use myself as an example a lot. I was a
Right.
very rebellious child growing up because I didn't
Moment
feel
of
like
Moment of truth.
but it was because my parents didn't really have that open dialogue with me, where I was learning a lot of things from my friends and my peers. Their voice rang very loud in my head more than my parents. So we were exploring and doing things that my parents probably had no idea about, right? Because they didn't allow that conversation to occur. So for me, I'm very opposite. I will intentionally say things to even make my children uncomfortable because we have to explore it. We have to discuss it. So it's very important that you keep the lines of communication open, because Rachel said it. If you don't take the initiative, somebody else will. And especially this age too, there is so much things going on out there. There are people that are predators out there. So you have to give your children these tools. There are people that will exploit them given the opportunity. So if you, the parent, does not take that opportunity to show them that, yeah, you might think you're ready, but there are certain dangers that your young mind does not understand. So it's very, very important to have that conversation.
Right.
Touching on what Brenda mentioned about, there are things out there that will harm you if you don't.
Predators.
And this just comes from like a
Hyena.
story, an alleged story that was played out in the media about an individual who got in trouble for inappropriate touching somebody else, allegedly. Okay. And I was discussing it with my friends and my peers, and we were just, coming up with stuff. We were just talking. We were probably saying that, because it was an older person, that if he's doing this, if this is true and this happened, I'm pretty sure it's not the first time.
Right.
And the time that he probably was doing it was in the generation of keep quiet. But now as we moved into the generation of but why, when it happened, they were like, you just found out who I really am. And this is
Right.
not the generation that you're going to play around with. And they made sure that you were held accountable for what you were doing, because now they're allegedly saying there are more victims out there that need to come forward
Right.
and speak.
you know. So it goes back to what Brenda was saying. And you know what we touched upon, these conversations need to happen. We need to talk to our children and have them to be more vocal with things that are happening around them. Who's telling them what? Who touched you inappropriately? These conversations need to happen, and like I said, the earlier the better.
Right. Well, right. So we are really just digging into parenting, and I know as we defined it or how we explained it initially that pretty much everybody is just learning. And I think I've heard a saying that we are parenting our children, and it gets to a time whereby our children they parent us. I don't know how that works, but I think it's because like you are different when you have one child, and then when you have the second and the third, the parenting changes, and also your children they influence how your parenting can be um, given. So I think was Rachel who said, I think, yeah, Rachel or Pablo said something about, you said the Y generation, and here this Gen Z. So how do you really, because they are very rebellious, because they think they know it all.
The Gen Z.
Yeah, like they think they know it all. They think they, it's like those of us who are above Gen Z or even the older folks, it's like they are not updated with what is happening or what they seems good.
Yeah, I don't like that word either.
It's hard for me.
Let's find the word.
Because I don't want to say they're rebellious.
Where's
I
the
don't
word?
want to say that they think they know it all. Again, it stems from, we came from a generation of, we kept quiet.
We saw
Right.
everything.
And they're more vocal, but why generation. So they're asking you, but why? And we have to understand them the same way we want them to understand
That's
us.
where I'm taking from.
So I mean, rebellious is a bit
No,
hard.
let's change. Okay, so I'm coming.
Informative is the word.
Informative could be, but I think let's come there from that angle. It's like I feel like they want their ways to be accepted, or they want their ways to be done,
So,
and they don't really want like their parents, or like if a parent says XY is like, this is what I want.
Mm.
So how do you
so do you
navigate
think-
that?
Do you think, based off of what you said, because I'm gonna kind of tie it into my own, experience of raising a Gen Z, or
Yeah.
that said,
Do you think it's also based off some sort of hidden trauma as well? The reason why I say that is they're also growing up and watching us pass through our trauma of staying silent.
Right.
So I think we spoke about something like this before we filmed, about a child growing up in a home where their parents are abusing alcohol, right? The child can go A or B.
Right.
Could it be that a child could see, oh, my mom didn't stand her ground and do what she wants, and now look at her going backwards? You know what I'm saying? Could it be in the sense where that child is like, no, I'm going to stand my ground. This is what I want, and I want this, and I want to do this. Can we agree maybe there's a bit of trauma on that
There
end?
is trauma there, but like, how do we draw? Because my advocacy here, like what I'm advocating is that how do we draw a line between culture and social norms? Because it seems like the social norm is winning over culture, and because of that, we are going to lose a whole culture simply because the social norms that are being implemented or are being sold, they are being